Hi, I'm Nicole Dickey, and welcome to part 4 of Becoming Fearless. Today we're talking about the C word. Yes, commitment. I know, it probably just gives you the EBGBs already, but I promise you it's gonna be good because we can't become fearless without fully committing to God. Now, if you made it to part 4, you may already have some commitment in you. That's awesome. Now, if you have some friends that didn't make it this far, maybe you can send them the link. But here we go. We are going to explore commitment on the first missionary journey of Paul and Barnabas. So in Acts chapter 13 and 14, we have the first missionary journey of Paul and Barnabas. First, they go to Antioch, and they were preaching in the synagogue. Many of the Jews that did not come to know Christ during that time started poisoning the minds of those that did. However, they did have some believers come out of that period of time while they were there. But many of the Gentiles, they went and spoke to the Gentiles. They had many Gentiles come to know Jesus. But again, those Jews went after them and started poisoning their mind. So the disciples, Paul and Barnabas, got really frustrated. It says they shook the dust from their feet and moved on to the next city. They went to Iconium, something like that. But they went there and they preached in the synagogues again. We got to remember that's kind of the first place they go because that's the most comfortable for them. But again, the Jews were poisoning the minds of the others, saying, who are these? Why are you believing what they're teaching? And they actually decided to stone them, but they fled out of the town before they did. The next place they go is Lystra. Now, something about Lystra is Paul goes right in and he sees a man that has crippled feet since he was little. I'm sure most of the town knew who this man was, and Paul goes and just heals his feet. So right away, the whole town starts freaking out because everybody knew who this guy was, and he was healed because of Paul. So they immediately associate Paul and Barnabas with Zeus and Hermes. Now, there was an old, I guess you could call it legend, but they truly believed it, that Zeus and Hermes had come back who knows how long time previous before, had come to the city and nobody was nice to them but an old lady. Therefore, they killed everybody in the city but the old lady. So they truly believed that this story happened at one time. So when they're associating Paul and Barnabas as Zeus and Hermes, they immediately start showering them with gifts. I think it's funny that it even says the priest of the temples even were bringing them bowls and wreaths and all kinds of flowers and all this stuff, thinking they were truly Zeus and Hermes. Well, when they come forward and say, hey, we're not Zeus and Hermes, and they try to start telling them about Jesus, there were actually those Jews, those poisoning the mind Jews from Antioch, Iconium, both of those cities that they were just at, they travel to Lystra and they start telling them, hey, these people are trying to tell you about Jesus, you shouldn't believe it. And so the people of Lystra, they go from worshiping Paul and Barnabas to stoning Paul. They pull Paul out of the city thinking he is dead after fully stoning him. And this is what cracks me up. It says in chapter 14, verse 20, it says, but as the believers, because they did have some believers come to know the Lord through all these cities and through all this witnessing, they gathered around Paul outside the city. Paul got up. He went back into the town. I'm looking at that going, they just stoned you. Why would you go back in? And then it says the next day, he left with Barnabas to Derbe. So then he goes to Derbe. It says they lead more people to know the Lord. And then you know what they do? They repeat that journey. They go back from Derbe. They go back to Lystra, where remember Paul was just stoned, thinking he was dead. They go back to Iconium. Remember those people poisoning the minds that they just about wanted to stone them in Iconium? And then they go back to Antioch, that same place with those Jews trying to turn everybody against Paul and Barnabas. And that's the end of the first missionary journey. If I'm going to look at commitment and persistence, that would be it. Because here's the thing, all those look a little crazy, but something came out of all of those places. When they actually went back into those cities, they went back to organize the church because so many people had come to know Jesus while they were there. And while they had departed, those same people were spreading the message of Jesus. So the reason they went back to all those cities and risked their life was because they were organizing the church. So here's the first thing I have to ask myself, and hopefully you'll get something out of that too. But are you loyal to the vision or are you loyal to the plan? Because I believe Paul and Barnabas had a completely different thinking, like the plan was going to go here. They probably weren't thinking that they would be stoned or would be being chased out, or not thinking that they were Zeus and Hermes. They were loyal to the vision. And if you're loyal to the vision, then God can change the plans on you and you don't get discouraged. Be loyal to your vision. What are you committed to? And when you commit to something, give it your all. Paul and Barnabas gave it their all, and they actually saw fruit come out of it, even though in the midst of it, it looked like pure turmoil. There's this kind of idea in society today that when the going gets tough, you get going. It's like that for everything. Like even in jobs, when the job gets tough, I'm going to quit. When the marriage gets tough, I'm going to get a divorce. We kind of have this mentality that when the going gets tough, we get going. But I believe that God says, hey, when the going gets tough, you just lean more into me and I'm going to do something amazing through this. Are you being persistent in your commitments? Are you make sure you follow through? Now, personal story here. When I was in LA getting my master's in seminary, I was surrounded by some amazing people that were really like trying to challenge my character in the process of getting this master's too. And I had committed to something and I needed to uncommit from it. I had given my word. My excuse was very valid on why I needed to get out of something, but it wasn't like life or death kind of situation, right? Like I probably could have still done this commitment, and they totally called me out on this. They said, Nikki, like, what is your word if you don't follow through on what you said you were going to do? And that's the thing. I wrote down in my journal that day, if my word is my word, if it doesn't mean anything, if my word doesn't mean anything, then what does that mean about me? In today's society, we'll throw out words nonchalantly. But what I'm asking you today is to follow those commitments. When you say you're going to commit to something, do it. Now, how does that apply with our walk with the Lord? Oh, it means closing the back doors. And here's what I mean by that. It means when you have an old boyfriend who's pursuing you and you're a married woman, you delete it and you don't even entertain the thoughts. It means when you are in a rough marriage and you have no validity for divorce, it means you don't even bring up the D word and you just say, hey, we're going to work through this and we're going to pray through this. And I don't even want to mention divorce because I'm not going to open up that back door. For me, oh goodness, our part 3, I talked about facing your fears. My biggest fear is car accidents. I know it's kind of ridiculous, but it's one of those I'm working on. And guess what happened? Literally 30 minutes after I did part 3, I got rear-ended. And I'm telling you what, like for me, being persistent is getting back in the driver's seat of the car and keep going in confidence. That's persistent to my commitment and knowing I'm not going to let this get me. I'm not going to keep the back doors. I can't have an Uber for the rest of my life. It means not entertaining those friends that you know will bring you down. You know they're going to bring you down, but you just can't let go of them. Why? Because that back door is still open. And closing those back doors means being loyal to God, being loyal to your husband, being loyal to your friends, being loyal to your family. It means deleting some people on Facebook and Instagram when you know that this is not good for me. And I'm only keeping this because I'm not ready to close that back door. It means being at church. It means reading your Bible. It means getting up 20 minutes early because you have to start the day in prayer because you want to do it right. You see, we have to stop riding the fence because the only way we are going to become fearless is if God is bigger than our fears. The only way that God can be bigger than our fears is if we truly commit to Him. If we say no more back doors, I am truly committing to you and I will be persistent in this commitment. Just like Paul and Barnabas, we're going to be on a wild ride. We're going to see crazy things happen in life, and there's going to be moments when things look like they're not going as we had planned. But when we're persistent to that commitment, when we are loyal to the vision that God has set out for our life, and we let Him have complete reign of the plan, I'm telling you what, we are on a wild journey, and we will become fearless because our God will be bigger than all our fears.